what happens with me personally is my uh struggle between my desire or yes, immediate desires and maybe lack of discipline in certain
And
areas.
listen, I'm going to cut it right there. It's the latter. That's all it is.
Lack of
It's
discipline.
discipline.
Yeah.
It's discipline.
It is, right?
It's how often, dude, tracking your food, tracking your macronutrients, that whole list of stuff I sent you to do
Right.
is free discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And if you instill that discipline, the answers and the desires and all that stuff will reveal itself.
And that's funny. That all starts with like habit forming things, and then where does that come from? It comes from, I know this is getting deep at the end, but it comes from having a good role model when
For
you're
sure.
growing, especially as men.
And in the 21st century,
Having a good father.
a lot of men don't only have men may have fathers, but they don't have good role models as fathers, good patriarchs who actually set the tone for how they should be men growing up.
I truly wholeheartedly believe our generation, because of me and you and people like us that have good intentions, I truly wholeheartedly believe that our generation will change the world, and if we already are in a way.
I have stuff see that thing written on my board, that little like diagram, that little like curve looking thing. Do you remember did you take stats in high school?
I did.
Do you remember the bell curve distribution?
I do. Actually,
it was like how many deviations away from the mean and stuff like that, standard deviations and all that. When you started finally working out with Roy, there was a level of me appreciating you finally tapping into the extreme outlier version of yourself. And the way I like teach my clients is I have them think about a bell curve distribution, the Gaussian distribution curve. Yes. And when you think of that bell curve, you have extremes on each end. You can have the extreme shitty version of yourself or the extreme positive version of yourself. And when I see anybody putting in the extracurricular work, it's like, let's go. Like Mo's finally tapping into a certain level of 1% version of himself that he's always had capable in his potential.
People, when I always tell people, give yourself grace, because too many people are not giving themselves enough grace to go through these things, because you know that better than anyone else. You went through those years of the tough things, of the difficult things that led you to who you were, and it took a lot of struggle and time. And this is like that Gary V type shit, like when he's like, you got time, you're so young. If you fuck up for the next 10 years, it's okay, because after that, you might be able to find what it is that you truly want to do and be in life, right? And I think that that's kind of the same thing. It's understanding that no matter what you do, you have to acknowledge that this is a process and that you're going to slowly try to understand it. And it comes down to confidence and attitude. I've always been the type of person that no matter who I'm talking to, no matter who is above me or under me, my attitude towards them is, I'm learning from you. I'm here with you in the trenches. I'm here to understand what it is that you want me to understand. I got this compliment that I've never gotten before from a higher up, and they were like, we get it. You're really new and you're learning a lot, and trust us, you're doing great. We think one of the good things about you is that you have a high level of EQ. And I didn't know what that was at first.
Your emotional quotient.
Yeah. And I think you have that too, right? So, and it kind of contextualized my being all my life. That's who I am. I'm always emotionally empathetic and curious, and I'm trying to understand always. And I think that's extremely important. Having that attitude of wanting to understand, of wanting to feel you and wanting to, you know what I mean? So,
because how can you get better unless you actually want the change?
Right. And that's starting with acknowledging your ego and where it starts, acknowledging where your insecurities come from.
Right.
Understanding, your shortcomings, understanding maybe you have problems with your anger, your short fuses, things like that, rage, trauma, all types of things. These all take time. They're all a process.
When you said what?
It ties into entitlement.
Right, exactly. Because guess what? When people come in here, they think they're entitled to, hey, I'm getting a workout, make me better.
Yeah.
It's like, you ain't entitled to nothing but the work you put in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why it doesn't matter if I'm training some of the top lawyer clients in Kansas City or if I'm training my boys. It boils down to holding everybody to the same level of accountability that they should hold themselves to. And it's unique for each individual.
Right.
But holding yourself to a standard, because deep down, you know, before you even come to me, that you want the change.
When I look at your training and workouts, I understand that the amount of the benefit that I will have from training with you is exponentially more than any sort of training I could do that has to do with, cardio or your basic, like workouts, and somebody in your ear telling you like, do this, do that. Why are you stopping? Stuff like that. Yours is in a different level because of everything that we just kind of talked about. You instill the mentality. You also instill a valuable skill, which is fighting.
Right, self-defense.
And that ties into your entire physique. It makes your physique change because being able to throw a punch, even if you're a bodybuilder, you don't necessarily have the physique to be a fighter. Right. So that I acknowledge all that. And that's the reason that I want to do it.
I was going to say, that's why I've never pushed it on you though.
Yeah. And,
You know what I mean?
and yeah, it's like,
And your effort will be reflected, or your interest will be reflected in your effort.
right.
And so you actually reaching out, being like, all right, I think I'm ready. You having gloves ready to go. You having your schedule in line. So when I ask you, well, what does this week look like? And you're like, I can go tomorrow. I go in at 2:00, so I can go anywhere from, I need 30 minutes to get ready at work, and I live 15 minutes away, so I need to be out of here by at least 1:00. So
It's not going to work.
but listen, that shouldn't be specific. I don't know your schedule, so I don't even know how to make it specific. I'm just saying,
No, I
as
get
a
you.
gross, exaggerative example of your interest, your effort should be one that you're deducing the intricacies of your day to day to ensure that you're able to get in here.
That applies to every facet of life.
Of
right?
course, but that's why I have clients backed up until July, though. That's why I have people legit constantly in and out, because there's a level of irreplaceable accountability that you get whenever you finally find a place that works for you.
Yeah.
And this isn't for everybody.
No.
And if you were to come in here and check it out and you were to, let's say, be a little overwhelmed and taken aback by the level of intensity that it actually is, I wouldn't feel no type of way whatsoever.
Right.
Because I understand and I live in the truth of that. But I think it would be doing you a disservice if I were to hold you to any standard other than what I would hold you to when you're in here. And that standard is one that makes you feel uncomfortable. And everything you talked about way earlier in the podcast was what? Getting comfort in that uncomfort. Fighting through the trials of life so you essentially understand the fruitfulness of the life that you have, even though it may have been riddled with suffering that was unaccounted for or non-asked from your position.
Absolutely.
Why do you think I run out in the snow with my shirt off and stuff?
I love that, by the way.
I do all that stuff because I voluntarily suffer because of how easy it is to live in the 21st century, especially in the West.
Yeah, my brother, he has his own little famous quote. He's like, pharaohs didn't have AC.
Think about it.
Stuff like that.
Legit though, that's the way to think about it. Every time we're in here with my clients and they're like, it's hot, Mitch, I need some water. I'm like, you need some water?
Yeah,
you're tired?
You think you're tired.
We got AC conditioning right here.
Yeah.
Let's go outside and box.
And see, this is what makes great leaders, is all the stuff that you mentioned. Having that ability to hold people accountable is extremely important to being a leader, because a lot of times if you're a pushover, or if you're too concerned with other people's feelings or their interpretations of you or their own life,
right,
then you're never able to keep those philosophies and that structure. You're never able to actually practice that.
You're never able to be secure in the confidence that's required to procure that leadership.
Exactly. And that's something that is extremely important to be a real leader.
Especially in the 21st century.
Especially in the 21st century, when everyone is just trying to please each other.
Right.
At the end of the day, like when we have a conversation,
right,
I'm just trying to agree with you.
Right.
I'm just trying to make you laugh, or you're trying to make me laugh.
Or it's the fear of missing out. I need to add something because I feel like if I'm not adding value, then I don't have value. Right. It's like, no, if you don't know anything on the topic, shut your mouth.
Exactly. If you're
willing to listen.
Yes. Active listening.
Active listening. Yeah.
It's very important.
Mo, this conversation, brother, I think I think there's going to be a lot more content for us going forward in the future.
Inshallah.
I can confidently ascribe a lot of these traits and a lot of these accolades that you're kind of bestowing upon me and giving me praise for. I can confidently ascribe them to you as well, and that's why you can identify them so well. But guess what? It's not about just having the qualities. It's not about you and I having the genetic potential, having at this point, the potential because of our life experiences, the way we were raised, everything else. None of that matters. It matters what we're doing each and every single day to ensure that we don't fall off that ball of optimization. So when we look at that bell curve distribution of being your best self, it's realizing there's a reason why there's only a few relative to how many there is in the world, but a few billionaires compared to how many millionaires there are.
Mm-hmm.
And why there's only a few millionaires compared to how many tens of thousands of heirs there are, right?
Right.
And the only way you're going to be able to sustain that unique 1% version of yourself, that billionaire version of yourself, is to do hard shit like billionaires would do. Consistently as the key. Because most people think, people when they come in here, they'll get some boxing in, they'll end up seeing themselves change on camera and they're confident. Can you do that consistently?
Yeah.
That'll be like, oh, I got this, and then I got that, and then they fall off, and then they don't track their diet, and then X, Y, Z.
It's like, what are you doing outside of here? That matters.
And I say all this, Mo, because I don't know what you're doing outside of here. This is the first time we've talked in a minute, which is dope. Like
for
this,
a while, yeah,
literally. This being the first convo we've had in years, literally, like verbally.
And I knew it would be like this because we always had this.
Always. Yeah. Since I was like 12, you were like 14, right? Yeah. Talking about the antifadas and stuff when we were like 14, 15.
Yeah, you were kind of a troll back then.
Let's not get into the pictures and the caricatures, right? I may pop one up right here.
I love those. I still love them to this day.
But with Abu's picture, I legit looked at a picture of Abu and drew it.
I feel bad for those guys. Yeah, I will never feel bad for myself because of that.
Yeah, you don't want to give yourself ultimate victim card when you experience Michael doing
Ahmed
God, and Abu. Right.
I was a target.
Oh, trust me, I'm already knowing. Yeah. Dude, my dad called you upside down head. That shit was so
I know. Incredible. I didn't know what to say. I was like,
all right, so yeah, my bad. I could go on a whole nother tangent. At this point, I don't know what you're doing outside of here, straight up. But going forward, because there is going to be a more explicit effort on your end to make sure that there is more of this consistently, that will show me how serious you would be with even the training.
Sure.
And then when we start training, it'll give me a better idea of what you are actually doing outside of here, because it'll be evident when we start training.
Absolutely. You're right.
Do you have any aspirations of starting anytime soon? Like, what does your diet and stuff look like right now?
Diet's pretty, it's getting much better last month, actually.
Do you track your macronutrients or no?
No, I remember you gave me like a whole freaking
homework assignment
thing on that. Yeah. And you actually gave me the blueprint to what you were like actually selling to people, and I had it for free. So,
and maybe that's why people don't take stuff as serious as they should, though, is because it's given to them.
Well, that's yes, and this is like a common thing. That's true. But for me personally, it's like I have all the intelligence in the world to be able to implement, all the awareness in the world to be able to implement anything.
But what doesn't cause the implementation?
It's what happens with me personally is my struggle between my desire or immediate desires and maybe lack of discipline in certain areas.
And listen, I'm gonna cut it right there. It's the latter. That's all it is.
Lack of
discipline.
Yeah.
It's discipline.
It is, right?
It's how often, dude, tracking your food, tracking your macronutrients, that whole list of stuff I sent you to do is free discipline.
Mm-hmm.
And if you instill that discipline, the answers and the desires and all that stuff will reveal itself.
And that's funny. That all starts with like habit forming things, and then where does that come from? It comes from, I know this is getting deep at the end, but it comes from having a good role model when you're growing, especially as men.
And in the 21st century,
having a good father.
A lot of men don't only have men may have fathers, but they don't have good role models as fathers, good patriarchs who actually set the tone for how they should be men growing up.
I truly wholeheartedly believe our generation, because of me and you and people like us that have good intentions, I truly wholeheartedly believe that our generation will change the world, and if we already are in a way. I'm just very fearful of the younger ones already because of the way that they were raised by Gen X, um, and the way that they they don't understand the value of serving the whole instead of serving the self. There's a very selfish aspect of the newer generations that they are not even aware of.
Dude, they grew up with the internet though. They grew up before they hit puberty. They were on the internet having to be judged, everything else. So like that's a whole nother conversation.
A whole nother thing, yeah.
But what it boils down to it is you can't affect or control the younger generation. You can't affect or control anybody other than yourself. Exactly. So what it starts with is changing and facilitating that change for yourself, and then setting the example as a beacon of savagery, essentially, for anybody who wants to actually know how to get the stuff done. And so for you, though, it's going forward, identifying the disciplines Mo Sabla needs to instill in his life. Know you've got people like me in your corner to actually help you, but your effort will be, or your interest will be reflected in your effort. Mm-hmm. And unless I'm constantly getting actual inquiries from you and I'm actually seeing you reflect that effort to me, I'm going to assume the effort's directed elsewhere. But because of my predisposition, your actual actions will determine whether or not the interest is actually there.
That's rightfully so.
And that's why when I see people and they've gotten to 280 pounds or they've gotten to 250 pounds or they've gotten to a certain body type that they know they're well beyond being at, especially if they were at a body type pre-hand, it's humbling knowing that the only way they actually are going to get back to that level of optimization is looking themselves in the mirror and knowing they got them there. Mm-hmm. And only they can get themselves out.
Yes, victimhood is a hell of a drug.
But why do you think we talked about the victimhood of being Palestinian, the victimhood of being mixed, the victimhood of being black,
the victimhood,
the victimhood?
That's where it starts.
But it shouldn't end there, because it should end with you knowing that it's beyond the victimization of your experiences, and that you as a unique human being, especially in the 21st century, can overcome any level of trial or tribulation that the world throws at you nowadays.
Yes, this needs to be like pounded in the head of every human being. Yeah, it's just...
Well, it can start with us commenting on the videos, subscribing, sharing, and everything else, showing subtle support. You know what I'm saying, brother?
Yes, exactly. I actually have... I think I did subscribe to you and liked your videos.
Nice. But going forward, it's about consistently showing that effort, right?
Yeah, of course.
Heck yeah, brother.
Absolutely, man.
This is awesome, Mo. Any last words, thoughts, questions, brother?
Just last words. If anyone is watching this, sending you so much love and so much care, and just know that you have to fall in love with the journey, the very simple things of life. And if you can't do that, then you are damned.
Yep, and there's nothing worse than being aimless in this world.
Yeah, exactly. Aimlessness is
the road to damnation.
Yes, and then but always remember too, I think it's important that if you are aimless, then you being in that aimless journey is a important part of you being eventually who you want to be. You're happy.
You eventually hitting that target and aiming accurately first stems from you having no target to aim at.
Right, failure, right?
And through that failure, the targets to aim at will eventually reveal themselves, but you need the discipline first and to trust the process through the consistency of that discipline to eventually reveal those desires, those targets to aim at.
And have a good attitude about it.
Of course. I think it's easy to get caught in the pessimistic, nihilistic perspective of the 21st century, but if you can at least be aware of how susceptible you are to negative emotion and negative feelings,
right,
you can nearly force yourself through the effort and interest of wanting to be happy to be happier, or at least allow the happiness to find your life a little easier.
Yeah, and it's important to say that you're supposed to be sad and depressed, right, and angry and happy and all of these things. You're supposed to be those things.
Especially if you haven't found worth.
You know what I mean? So, but even when you find worth, like you're supposed to have experiences,
of course,
where, you know, and people, I think there's too much shit out there now. It's like positivity, positive affirmations and all this stuff. But no, you have to know that it's a part of your natural process. And give yourself the grace.
The grace,
when
yep.
you're sad. Like, I was a very depressed person growing up.
Oh
truthfully,
yeah, I hear that.
depressing and shit. And honestly,
maybe that's why we related so well.
Yeah, and I fell in love with that side of myself, and that's completely normal. But it gets dangerous when you fall in love with it so much that it becomes who you are completely.
Right. When you drown yourself in the river like Narcissus did. Right.
Interesting.
The reflection of Narcissus, that's where the term narcissism comes from.
Oh, wow.
He looked at himself in the mirror or in the pond, and he was like, God, you're so fucking sexy. And he literally drowned himself.
That's cool. Okay, that's incredible. We can definitely end it there.
We can end it there. Brother, it was a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
Let's definitely do this again. And going forward, we will just we'll continue this grind of growth through our interests, through our interests being reflected in our efforts.
Amen.